You.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Koviki Talk. Koviki Talk is a multi-episode series. It used to be a 21-episode series, but now it's bigger than 21. It's a series that focuses on COVID-19 from the Pacific Islander perspective. So much like today, we have panelists on to talk about different aspects of COVID-19. And a lot of it has to do with timing. So like when we were voting, we talked about COVID-19 in terms of voting safely. When we were going through like the census, we talked about that. Right now, it's about the vaccine, right? So we're talking about the vaccine. We're talking about San Diego, and really the title of this is San Diego is Winning. So this is one of those situations where we get to talk to the team that's doing it right. So what does right look like? It looks like what is going on right now in San Diego. So we are going to introduce our panelists and get to the discussion. I'm going to first introduce Keni Lasitani. Keni is a fourth-year Tongan medical student at UC San Diego School of Medicine. He is interested in liver disease in Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander communities and plans to pursue a residency in internal medicine followed by a fellowship in hepatology. He is the president of Polynesians in Medicine, which is a national group of Polynesian medical students that strives to increase NHPI representation in the medical field. He is a clinical research coordinator at UC San Diego's Antiviral Research Center as part of the COVID-19 Prevention Network and helps conduct the AstraZeneca clinical trials at UC San Diego. Welcome, Keni.
Hi, Carl, Nackie. It's good to be back. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah,
awesome.
Welcome.
Nackie, do you want to introduce your favorite niece?
Yes. Next, we have Teini Elisara, graduated from UC San Diego with a major in human biology. From 2019 to 2020, Teini served the San Diego community as Miss Pacific Islander of San Diego and completed the UCSD pre-medical what's the word, Carl?
Baccalaureate? You're asking me that?
Okay, program. As she applies to medical schools, Teini is working as a team lead with UCSD's COVID-19 response team, helping with San Diego's case investigation and contact tracing efforts. Welcome, Teini.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone.
Welcome, Teini. Yeah, you know that our panelists are very qualified by how many times we mess up in the bios. So if we mess up a lot in the bios, they really got good credentials.
Well, it's hard to follow up, Keni, but thank you.
I just wanted to quickly add too, sorry, Carl, that Teini
okay.
has her UCSD medical school interview this week. So everyone please include her in her prayers so that she can join me at UCSD School of Medicine.
Oh, I'm sure she will. I'm sure she will. And then last we have Tana Lepule. He is a Samoan American and a native of San Diego County. He is the son of Reverend Sepulona and Talo Lepule. Rest in peace, rest in love. He is married to Elena and they have a daughter, Leana, and a son, Yonatana. Is that a capital I, I'm assuming in the bio. Okay, Yonatana. Tana grew up in National City, California, where he graduated from Sweetwater High School and completed his bachelor's degree at San Diego State University. After college and during his journey as an elementary school teacher, he found a passion and service to various communities, such as the Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander and Asian American communities. He's been an advocate at the local, state, and national levels. He continues to learn from supports and advocates for all NHPI groups in any way possible. Tana is very appreciative of those who've come before him in this work and will strive to continue the pipeline of future Pacific Islander leaders. He credits God, his parents, wife, children, family, and friends for the servant he is today. Welcome, Tana.
Thank you.
So it's not always that we have everybody from the same area. Sometimes we end up with, panelists from all over the country or sometimes all over the world, but we've got everybody here in San Diego, and that is one of my favorite places to be in California. It's just so expensive, and it's just like California, right? If you live in California, it's expensive, but I kind of wanted to pick real quick, if the panelists can go through, what is your favorite thing about San Diego? And I've got my favorite things. You got the zoo, you've got so many things going on. and diversity. I think a lot of people forget about what North County looks like in terms of San Diego, but then we'll just go down from what I see from top to bottom. Keni, what do you like the most about being in San Diego?
Yeah, no, so I went to UCLA for undergrad. So it was like a really busy city. Everything was like really dense and heavily populated. So I really like San Diego. It's like a lot more open. It's a lot more clean. So that's what I really, really enjoy about San Diego.
Awesome. And Teini, how about you?
Kind of similar to Keni, I grew up in Los Angeles, or the Los Angeles area. And I like how San Diego, there's so much to do, like you alluded to, Carl. And there's not that much traffic, at least compared to LA or like the Bay Area, right? So I can like go downtown and be there in 15 minutes, whereas in LA that would take like an hour. So much to do, and it's pretty accessible.
Awesome. And Tana, how about yourself?
Yeah, thank you. You know, as a person who was born and raised here, and similar to like when folks in Hawaii say, you know, like how their landmarks are, their high school, like what high school you're from the islands, it's like what village or, you know, island you're from. So for myself, I would say National City was the city I grew up in. It's kind of made me who I am. And, you know, my father was a minister there. So, you know, I learned everything there. And then just the city of San Diego itself is beautiful because we have mountains to the west, we have the beaches mountains to the east, beaches to the west, and a foreign country to the south of us. And then, you know, as we're always a stepchild to every other big city in California, the rest of the other cities up to the north of us. So I would say I'm a, you know, born and raised and appreciate everything about San Diego.
I think people forget how large San Diego is in terms of a city. People think it's just the city that's south of LA, millions of people in the greater San Diego area. Nackie, other than my aunt and your mom being in San Diego, I don't think there would be a second favorite thing about San Diego, but what are some of your favorite things about that city?
I think the weather, because it's constantly warm. Where here we get everything, you know, not everything, but it gets cold for me. And so I love the weather. I love that it's close to the border where my mom lives. So it doesn't take that long to cross over to Mexico and go shopping or go to a resort. But I'd have to say the weather and that my mom is there.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with that Auntie lives there. That's the safe answer. Yeah. So, you know, really, this is one of those things where we're talking about what are we doing right in San Diego. So there's a lot of eyes on San Diego, and like, what are they doing there that's getting them moving in the right direction, and getting traction really that we haven't found as much of, at least in other cities. So I don't know if the panel has spoken to each other in terms of what they wanted to cover, but I kind of wanted to throw this out to the panel, and then Nackie can jump in as well. But what are some of the things that, just big picture, it's such a beautiful place. There's so many things that could be distracting to COVID-19 or the vaccine and all those kind of things. You think there's something in a macro element that makes you successful in where you guys are at, or is it just what we don't want to believe, that it's just hard work by dedicated people that are doing what you're doing? But I guess that's the question, is why do you think you're winning, before we get into the details? And that's open to anybody.
Yeah, I'll start. I think kind of just going off what we were talking about, what we enjoy most about San Diego. And this is just my personal opinion and some speculation. I don't think there's any data or research as of yet to support this. But the fact that it is a lot more open, and I think restaurants and stuff are a lot more are set up to be more outdoors to experience San Diego, the nice weather that we mentioned. That may have something to do with the fact that we see lower cases here compared to other places like Los Angeles, where it's a lot more dense in terms of the population and everyone living more closely together. So that's just a thought before we get into kind of the details of what we had prepared. But yeah.
Do you think you're reaching more of the elder? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Keni, do you think you're reaching more of the elders? because that's the population. Like here, we're trying to get the elders 65 and older for, well, really PIs, but here in the Bay Area, it's 65 and older. Do you think you're reaching enough PIs for the vaccine? Or do you know?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. This is just kind of my own personal perspective. I think that, we are reaching a good amount of people here in San Diego, especially with our superstation. But in regards to our communities specifically, we know that our communities have, many comorbidities that predispose us to more severe disease when we're exposed to COVID. And our people have these comorbidities at younger ages compared to other race ethnicities, if that makes sense. So it would be nice to see, the tier system expand eligibility to people in our community, who are like 55 and older, because I feel like that would reach more people in our communities who we've seen that are really impacted by this.
Awesome, thank you.
I really wanted to, that's the topic I really wanted to talk about, is the elders, the group of the elders. And I think that and this is just from the outside looking in, it seems like that, we're in more danger, we're at more risk because we're in multi-generational homes. Mm-hmm. So we're more likely to spread it to our family and in multiple generations, not just from children to parents, but the grandparents or great uncles, great aunties. Does that play in our favor, though, when it comes to the vaccine, in educating our seniors, getting them there, driving them there, eliminating or reducing the language barriers that may exist with the elders? Does that multi-generational piece play in our favor at this point with the vaccine, or how do you all see that as in being a hindrance or a help?
I can chime in on this. I say it's more of a help, and you make with what you have, and our group, we're pretty optimistic, and I think the multi-generation kind of speaks for itself in that the messaging has to also be tailored to the different levels, whether it's elders, whether it's the young adults, and even just like youth in general, where we've been I think resourceful is that we tap into our networks for some of these in language that's developed, with the different response teams, regional response teams. So we each have our kind of wheelhouse with regards to like who we can reach out to, what resources we can provide, and at the same time, what resources we can get from our networks. We'll share a little bit more about that later, but I would say to an advantage. I think a disadvantage is if we don't utilize those different avenues of kind of outreach or information dissemination and so on.
Yeah, just to kind of go off Tana too, it's definitely having multi-generational households be common in our communities is definitely a double-edged sword, because when we think about transmission, and finding places to isolate and quarantine properly, when you're living with so many people in one house, that makes it really difficult. But from a perspective where we're trying to think, how can we outreach to people who are 65 and older and get them online to schedule appointments and to find these resources that are primarily using the internet and using technology. It's having a multi-generational household where you have grandkids and high schoolers and so forth and so on who are more familiar with that is definitely a powerful tool that I think our communities use to an advantage.
Keni, do you see that in the same way that this where it played against us? It was to our detriment early on because of the transmission. Do you see this as a better way to reach our seniors than communities that may not live in multi-generational homes? You may have a large portion of the population elderly but living on their own, which really isn't a Pacific Islander thing for the most part.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I totally agree with what Keni said about it could be helpful, it could be hurtful. And just something about a question that you asked earlier, which is like, is there like something different about San Diego that might make it, easier for people to get vaccinations, or why the community is more vaccinated? And something I kind of spoke with Tana and Keni about, and one of my favorite things about San Diego is that it's a quicker drive everywhere than like Los Angeles. To go to Petco Park and get a vaccination is much different than going to Dodger Stadium. The drive is not as strenuous and the wait times are not as long. And I really think that that's something that we have an advantage of, and like we're winning in, but I do think that when one of us is winning, we're all winning, right? But in terms of multi-generational houses, yeah, I think that right now in our county, it's only healthcare workers and the elderly. And so those are the only people getting vaccinated. So we clearly have a lot of our people in the healthcare settings. And then also I feel like it shows that we really want to take care of our elders. And that's just part of our culture. So I do think that those multi-generational housing situations is like what Keni said, helping with the technology, helping drive to a site, all of that is really helpful. And I just want to encourage the youth to keep doing that and taking care of our parents and our grandparents and do the best that we can.
Awesome. I know President Biden had said something earlier in the week, I think it was last week, about Hispanic or Black families having difficulty getting online, and it caused an uproar. But really, when he said that to me, I was thinking of our elderly community having a hard time getting online, having language barrier. I mean, if they get to the right website, they may not be able to, read what's going on or the dates and all that kind of thing. So I didn't find the offense in what he had said. It just made me think of our elders as a population. Nackie, I'm sorry, I'm stepping on your questions.
Oh, that's okay. Tana had his hand up, so I was like,
okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that first question with regards to like what's been helpful is I believe San Diego is also the first to have that super center or super test sites. So you can imagine the media coverage. So there's, both social media and media in general, like TV and all that. So it helps to put that kind of on folks' radar, no matter what generation you are. That helps with regards to just, everybody knows COVID, but then, with this kind of media coverage, everybody knows that we have these super sites, or I don't even know what they're called, but right. Everybody knows that there's these long lines. And now they've even taken a step further by having like pods in different neighborhoods now, specifically like underserved communities. So I think that's helped a lot with regards to keeping it on the radar. I think that leverages and complements the efforts that the multiple communities are doing, specifically our communities, that, we come with these messages, but it's also kind of heavily out there in kind of the media.
A lot of, at least up here, a lot of places are, make sure you register online, like we were talking about online. How do you think we can help the elders by, besides having some family member register you, right? And like we said, not everybody has a family member, but when these pods show up in the neighborhoods, can they just go in, or do they have to register online? Do you know, Tana?
I can kind of comment on this. Yeah. So in all counties in California, you should be able to access the 211 phone number. Okay. So if you have someone that doesn't have access to a computer, the internet, they can call that 211 number. And I actually called it to make an appointment for my elderly neighbor. You can find testing sites there, free testing sites, your local testing site, vaccination sites. They give you that information and you get connected with an actual person who makes that appointment for you to get tested, to get vaccinated. You can ask them questions. It's such a good resource that I would really encourage you to just spread it, just if people have questions about general COVID practices. Like, they have so many resources there. And then of course it would probably be quicker if there is a family member that can go online and check if there's available appointments. But if someone doesn't have someone available to do that, then they can definitely call that number and get that information.
That's awesome. I had no clue. That's great information. Look at San Diego.
Yeah, I think you do have the advantage over when you talk about going to Dodger Stadium in LA. Chavez Ravine is not the easiest place to get to if you're getting, if you're coming in from LA or in from out of LA. That's not an easy place to get to. And it's where the Dodgers play anyway. So I'm going to leave that alone. So let's talk about you know, as the vaccine was getting closer and closer, we talked about that, you know, all through last year. Like it's beginning, like in the summer, we really started talking about, well, when is it going to be here? When can we get into the trials and all those kind of things? As that was happening and it got closer and closer as it went, is that something that the planning starts from that point, or when did you really ramp up the planning to execute how well you guys are doing it now? I'm assuming it wasn't just, you know, the vaccine showed up and then you said, okay, let's start working now. So talk a little bit about the preparation to be where you are now.
Yeah, if it was okay, Carl and Nackie, before kind of jumping into the conversation about the successes that we've seen with our communities in terms of the vaccinations, I think it would be nice to kind of, you know, give a little bit of context and show the background, and just the kind of the growth and the progress that we've made to kind of really bring things full circle. I know people kind of tune into Koviki Talks. Hopefully everyone's tuning in consistently because there's a lot of good information here. But for those who don't tune in regularly, it'd be nice to kind of just give them a brief summary of how the COVID-19 has been affecting our communities, and then what we're seeing in terms of vaccination. And then we can talk more about that further if that's okay.
Awesome.
Sure, absolutely.
Perfect. So with that being said, I just kind of wanted to set the stage with some data. I mean, data's terrible to look at, so I apologize. Hopefully this is simple enough and I'll keep it brief. But I really, like I said, in order to really grasp and fully appreciate the efforts that our communities and our county has put into getting our communities vaccinated, we need to know where our communities stand in terms of this pandemic. So for the next couple slides, I'll share some data from the San Diego County website, which is another great resource that we'll mention later and talk more about. But here you'll see that unfortunately, not much has changed in terms of the case rates for our communities in San Diego. And you'll see that if you look at the NHPI dashboard that UCLA has started, you'll see that the COVID case rates are still high for our communities as well. So, you know, those messages about continuing to social distance and wear masks in public are still important now, even though we have a vaccination in place. And so you'll see that compared to other race ethnicities, our rate for COVID cases is the highest. And so the best way to mitigate that is by wearing masks, like I mentioned. On this slide, you'll see that in terms of hospitalization and death rates for our communities, compared to other race ethnicities, we have the highest hospitalization rates for COVID-19. And one of the highest death rates for our communities as well. And this data is most up to date. So as you can see, that unfortunately, this pandemic is still having a huge impact on our communities. There's still a lot of work to be done. So, you know, especially when it comes to preventative measures that we've kind of been reinforcing from the start of this pandemic. So that's definitely one of the key messages that we want people to take away from this is, even though we'll mainly be focusing on the successes we've had with vaccinations and why vaccines are important, wearing masks in public, social distancing as much as possible is still just as important. And then in terms of testing, this is one of the successes that we're seeing here in San Diego. Compared to other race ethnicities, we have the highest testing rates, which is great. To me, when I look at that, it shows that our communities understand the importance of testing. And it also shows that our communities have access to testing, which is a huge barrier for a lot of communities of color and minority populations, is access. So this is a good sign. This is a step in the right direction. And I think it's kind of the first sign to show, even before looking at the COVID vaccination rates in the next slide, this is something to celebrate and something to be proud of in terms of the efforts we've done for outreach. We're clearly reaching our community members and informing them about what they need to do to stay safe and to protect their families and to protect their family members. So the last data slide that I'll show, and is kind of the main course, I guess, of the meal, is the vaccination rates that we've seen in San Diego, particularly for our communities here seen in red. We have the highest vaccination rates compared to other race ethnicities here in San Diego. And that's amazing. I think, you know, we all deserve a pat on the back, not just us, but also, you know, other community-based organizations and community leaders and advocates in San Diego, that this isn't an easy feat. You'll see, unfortunately, for other communities like Black and African American and Hispanic or Latino communities, their vaccination rates are low. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done to reach those communities and help dissipate some of the misinformation that's being circulated on media about vaccines. So it's good to see that the messaging that we're circulating for our communities is working and that our communities understand the importance of getting vaccinated. So those are mainly the big updates we had in terms of the data and kind of painting the picture. But we also had some best practices that we wanted to talk about in addition to the vaccine.
Yeah, so I just want to continue to encourage everyone. Like Keni said, we need to continue to wear a mask, social distance, stay 6 feet away from each other, and avoid gatherings and crowds, even after being vaccinated. Even after being infected with COVID, we still need to try and implement these or keep these things going. And they're working. We're on a downward trend, but we want to just keep it going until we can reach herd immunity. And then if someone this is something that's really important, if someone in your household is infectious, you want to try and get them isolated and then get yourself quarantined. And then just along these lines, because I do work on a contact tracing team, you're going to have contact tracers call you, and just please answer them. Please be nice to the contact tracers. They just want to help and keep the community safe. And this is a good time when you get a call from them to ask them for any additional resources. If you need isolation housing, if you need food, again, they're really just there to help. But if someone is infectious, make sure you're wearing a mask in common areas, disinfect any common spaces. And then just remember that even if someone isn't showing symptoms, it can still be infectious, which is why it's just so important to continue wearing your mask and stay socially distanced. And then lastly, know your vaccination phase. So this can be found on your county website, or again, that 211 number for anywhere in California. This is where you can know your vaccination phase, get your appointment made, and also get testing done.
Okay, I think this is me. So with regards to best practices, specifically on outreach, I think this is the panel here itself kind of comes from different sectors, and it's kind of, our own wheelhouse. And so some of the bullet points here is participating in different sectors. Just on this panel alone, we have access and, kind of an advocacy avenue to academia, community, the county. And I think what's helpful there is that, we provide opportunities for us / our communities to be at the table. Multi-generational approach, we talked about that earlier. We have to kind of tailor messages to our elders, young adults, and even youth. And we've been really blessed to have resources, not only, locally in English, but specifically in language with some of the resources from the national team and the different regional teams on specific Pacific Islander kind of resources. So that's been helpful. The other is maximizing our community networks. I think we kind of shared a little bit about that. What really helps is that it saves the trust building time. Because a lot of times working with our community, if you're new to the community or if they don't know you, we'll do the courtesy of like, oh, yes. But then when you're off, it's like, okay, who are you? So I think that's what really helps us with the kind of successes that we have coming our way. Also, there's no need to, kind of tailor messages, because they'll create the messages themselves if they don't use what's kind of shared with them. Because, what better interpretation than for our communities to get this data and have them deliver it in their way. And I'll share some of those actually later. The other is sharing multiple resources available. For the outreach we've done, you have to complement it with things that are free, and things like hand sanitizers, PPEs, magnets. We talked earlier about incentives, like even just something as simple, in our community, right? You come bearing gifts. And I think that definitely helps us in identifying from our own Pacific Islander networks, but also within the local ethnic networks here, because the communities here are pretty vocal. And so we're really blessed to kind of have partnership and relationships with them. So we're able to kind of, Bifaikala and see what they have and kind of, you know, say, hey, how can we get some of that too? At the same token, it helps them to kind of advocate for our communities too, because a lot of times they're at the tables that we're not. So it helps to kind of have allies who are at these certain tables. The other thing is, let's see, kind of what Teini talked about, you know, staying on message, continue to do, no matter, you know, pretend like it's still the front end of this pandemic, maintain distance, you know, stay at home if you can. My family and I, you know, we stayed home, and when we went out at night and we stayed in our cars and just drove around, you know, so it can be done. Get creative with your family and so on. So those are just some of the few outreach strategies or methods that we've done. But as you can see, the theme is also about us leveraging resources available. It's not just us, it's our friends, you know.
So I had a question for Keni real quick. Was the data already disaggregated? I noticed the NHPI, and then you had referenced the San Diego website. Was that already disaggregated before COVID-19, or was that something that the community or PIs pushed after the outbreak?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and a conversation we should definitely have all the time, and remind our community members to push data disaggregation whenever they see an opportunity. But I think, from my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tana, San Diego's done a pretty good job of keeping the data disaggregated for our communities since the pandemic has started, which is great. It saves our communities a lot of time from having to do that work ourselves, so that we can focus our efforts on more important things like outreaching to our elders and our community members to get vaccinated.
Yeah, I could add to that too. The advocacy has always been there, and specifically on Pacific Islander disaggregation of the data. You know, again, like I said, we've all had different avenues, and we have relationship with the actual head of the County of San Diego, the head of the health department, and you know what we did was we shared a resource that was available, which is the Community in Contrast. It's specifically a Pacific Islander data, this demographics report. It's, you know, 2014, but it's still relative to kind of making the statement or an argument about why data disaggregation is important, how we're similar to other communities, how we're not similar to other communities. And then even like having access to their epidemiology department and telling them, like, you know, you need to do this. It's not only a mandate at the federal level of OMB Directive 15, but there's also been some local bills in California that specifically, you know, ask for disaggregation of data, Pacific Islanders. So it's a multitude of kind of a approach that's been started from, you know, even before COVID. So I think that's what's helping. It was no surprise to see that they pulled our data apart, but, you know, we're not satisfied. We'd like to see if they could pull it even at a more granular level and see specifically within Pacific Islander communities. So it's been a continued effort of, you know, making noise, because a lot of times, you know, you have some epidemiologists say, you know, the N is too small, which is the sample size, but I always push back with, you know, are you saying that our death in the community is less relevant than any other community? So, you know, we can get pretty with them or we can get nasty with them. Oh, so we also talked about, you know, with the work that we're doing, and a lot of times, you know, we're this panel and we're kind of the ones speaking and having this kind of exposure, but, you know, I think we've all shared within our own kind of input from our panelists here, is that, you know, we're just one piece of this bigger piece. And I found a Samoan proverb or a quote that I think fits kind of really the effort that's being done here in San Diego. And it goes, meaning that the person up front or speaking, oh, geez, I'm getting emotional on this, is no more important than those who support you, those who pick you up, and those who also okay you, you know, like give you some lickings when you mess up. So I just want to start with that. And I think we all agreed that, you know, and I apologize because we might miss some people on this. So for those who are listening, we actually have a slide, and I just want to quickly, you know, go over the different areas. I know I don't want to take the whole time, but this also shows the diversity in our network with regards to reach. We have influencers, we have elders, you know, like the ministers, that elder in the back room who don't say anything, but whatever they say goes. We have young adults, you know, we have like tattoo parlors who have their followings, young adults who, you know, like TikTok and I don't even know about that stuff. I did one with my daughter, but you know, hey, I was trying to get a message across. We have our different businesses, halals, community-based organization, our faith-based group, our student organizations. We're lucky that, you know, I think that's how the three of us met, was through the Pacific Islander student organizations at the different universities. We also have a big resource for us, which is the regional and national Pacific Islander COVID response teams. And then specifically, I want to use some time here to acknowledge the San Diego Pacific Islander Task Force, because, you know, we all have the same budget as a lot of people, which is zero.
Right.
We're fueled on passion and you know, cultural responsibility. But that's CJ Hattori, Chelsea Jones, Kaela Akaf, Catherine Chuloy, Moana Cabiles, Nash Salas, Keni Lasitani, this guy right there, Teini Elisara, that lady right there, myself, and also what's been crucial as far as the world of academia and been a resource for us is Dr. Happy Aranata. And then also the allies. You know, we talk about diversifying, not just within our communities, but also outside of our communities. And those are allies like the university that Teini and Keni's from, UCSD. Scripps Health has been a wonderful resource. They may actually find some funds to support our effort. The County of San Diego, you know, again, with Teini being a contact tracer and investigator. And then also the COVID task force is a task force that's very vocal, pretty much led by a district where there's a big African-American communities, but the first ever Samoan church in the US, continental US, is in that district. So we have a right to that seat, and I use that to kind of get us there. So we just wanted to acknowledge those folks, because we are just one piece of this wheel, and we wanted to properly do our part in acknowledging that. So
that's awesome.
Oh, I'm sorry. So the messaging from before, I just want to share. So I'm not going to say specifically who said these quotes, but I have a quote from the different messaging with regards to vaccination and even testing. And this shows the diversity in it. So here's three that I'm going to highlight. And one is you can either die or try to live. The other is the shit is free, excuse my language.
Right.
And then the other is God said so. So if you can see the different kind of audiences that those have come from, you know, we provide the data, but the other thing too is we want to make sure we don't have misinformation going out there. So we always want to check with our folks if they're going to tailor it to, you know, kind of say, oh, what's your idea of doing it? But, you know, we definitely want to make sure we acknowledge those who are helping in this movement and success in San Diego. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. You guys are doing a great job there. I think early on, we realized that we only listen to people that look like us, right? And I don't know why we do that. We grab the information more from, you know, like this group here, we're all PIs and people relate to our faces. Early on, we had, you know, pastors on and doctors on that were PIs, so that we can connect, you know, our people to the people that are actually in the fight, like, you know, Dr. Fuimono, who's in Washington, who also is a Faith's son, where he said, to love thy neighbor is to wear your mask. And, you know, we relate to religion, we relate to people that look like us. And so it's not surprising that your vaccination rates are high. And that our community, or your community, San Diego, got educated early on. How did they get there? Do you think that is one of the reasons that PIs are getting the information there and our numbers are actually looking good?
Yeah, I'll make a comment on that. Like Tana was saying, our county has done a great job of really disaggregating this data for our communities from early on. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see once the vaccination data becomes available for other counties like Orange County and LA County and other counties across the nation where there's a large population of our communities and where they disaggregate the data, that's kind of key, that you'll see high vaccination rates. And I think it's because we have this really strong network of community organizations, community leaders, and I don't think that that can be understated or emphasized enough. It's amazing to see that our communities out on the islands are connected, even though they're isolated islands, or geographically they look isolated. But they still find a way to stay connected, share information, share culture, tradition, and so forth. And we still see that here in the mainland in the United States. So, as much as, we're doing our best to share these messages as part of the San Diego Pacific Islander Community COVID response team, we take these resources from other, organizations from other states, and you'll see that these efforts are also implemented by other response teams. And so I'm excited to see, once the data becomes available, similar vaccination rates for our communities. I'm really hopeful that we'll see that as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sheila James, which Tana answered the question, but one of the people on is, as we move forward with phases, is the plan to continue messaging to the younger population? For example, college students or students involved in developing messages. And Tana, your response was, I'll let you answer.
Yeah, so from the very beginning, and this goes back to previous campaigns, whether it was the presidential campaign or whether it was the census, it's the same kind of avenues that we've tapped into to continue the messaging, whether it's a pandemic, whether it's voting, whether it's registering. We've been blessed to kind of already have some of those existing relationships, but you're right, was it Sheila, that we have to include young folks because really, to tell you the truth, they will have the technology skills, be a little creative than my own kind of flip chart presentation, but I think we should definitely utilize the gifts that our young folks bring because, as much wisdom and kind of knowledge that our more wise folks have, I think our young folks also have that. And I think we'd be much more powerful in our campaigns if we work at all levels.
I think we found that with the census. There was a lot of census efforts because those were not in traditional methods of the census. And there was a lot of focus on the younger generation because we wanted them to get involved with the multi-generations in the home. And if they needed to get their elders onto the website and then walk them through the questions, to your point, Tana, that was a lot of the efforts and the messaging was to the younger people in the home to help out the other generations. So I think as that, like we talked about that earlier, how that played against us in terms of transmission, it seems like we're learning that there is a definite pathway or bandwidth for information to get into the home by getting it to the younger generation, having them disseminate it and not have the language barrier or the technology issues. It's an amazing job you guys have done. I see the resource page up. Do you want to go through that? Because that looks great too.
I was just going to comment really quickly also on that. A lot of the people on that San Diego COVID task force are people fresh out of college or still in college or in medical school. And then also Tana he led the census task force here, NHPI census task force here in San Diego. And again, he had all of the student orgs from the schools involved in that, coming to the meetings. So he's done a really good job at keeping all of us in the conversation and trying to, get stuff for us to put on our resumes. I think that that's like really appreciated, but then in the process, it's also helping us bring this information, the factual information back to our families and kind of, putting an end to some of that misinformation so that we can get better numbers to the testing sites and to fill out your census and things like that. In terms of resources, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but again, 211 or your county website. These are just some of the things you can get: testing sites, vaccination sites, isolation housing options, food services, general questions can get answered about COVID-19, or if you're uninsured, this is a really good place to ask for free resources. Again, they offer a lot of free food services down at the food banks, anything like that, if you have someone who can go pick it up for you, because of course, if you're infectious, we ask that you stay home. And then I don't know if Tana wants to talk about these other two websites that you can check out.
Yeah, so the other website is the PICOPSI, where the resources for the National COVID Pacific Islander COVID Response Team houses everything. But also you could identify from your state the different regional reps as far as a contact. Please reach out to us too. Hopefully we're friendly enough that you feel comfortable in asking, because for myself, if I don't know, I'll find people who know, and I really surround myself around smart people. So that's a website. The other is the Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander COVID-19 Data Policy Lab dashboard. I believe that's also, or that's actually housed out at UCLA. And there you can actually find specific data. If they're disaggregating in your state, this group actually helps to identify and find those numbers. So that's a good point. If you live in a certain state, check the dashboard, navigate the dashboard. You can see where your numbers are. And then, again, kind of what Teini was saying, visit your county website. There's a lot of resources. A lot of counties are maybe the biggest resources available, but that would be also another place. And then just really our own networks, ask your family member, who's involved with, COVID stuff, or, who do you know? Because it's really the best. And I always say that the answers to our communities is our communities. We could always just leverage what other folks or other resources are, but, there's no better kind of solution to our journeys than our own self. So the resources, it's not on there, but, it's in our DNA that we are a resource. So let's not underutilize that.
You can't make a better segue than this. So Koviki Talk is brought to you by the Pacific Islander Center of Primary Care Excellence. So they're not only a resource for us to go to on the web, they're the reason that we're able to have these conversations in this platform. So, and I just saw that and it reminded me, hey, it's time to get to pay the bills and get the shout out to PICOPSI. So thank them for doing so much with us, and they're a resource as well. Real quick on Nackie had asked the question, and it kind of, it begs the bigger question of how come San Diego's done so well. You really look at the testing number that she was looking at and talking about. That was a leading indicator, right? Like if your community leads in getting tested, they're probably going to lead in getting vaccinated. So again, that goes back to like, how is that just a big community effort, and the community is that tight because there's a lot of areas that definitely did not lead in testing, and then is lagging again in vaccination. So it's like, you can kind of tell that San Diego was probably going to do well with vaccination because the testing numbers were so good. So that kind of goes back to, again, is there a formula with that, or is it just that the community and all those shout outs, all those acknowledgments that were on that big page, maybe they're just that strong and there isn't a secret sauce. It's just the community is that active and that passionate about, everybody's well-being. But can you talk about that you kind of saw the leading indicator going in with the testing rate being good, that you thought you'd be good at vaccinations too?
I can chime in. I know I talk too much, and just because I get excited, but I say again, it stems from the efforts of previous campaigns, and a lot of it is from our communities throughout, like the state of California, throughout the nation, from Arkansas to Washington, Oregon, California. The momentum just continues, and if you notice, though, you'll see some of the common denominators with regards to various leadership in different areas, but I think the beauty and the true test of time is the young folks that are involved. And I used to be young. This used to be all Black, but I think it's also our responsibility to provide opportunities and continue that movement and really have a lot of intention. I see someone said with regards to, was it intentional? In a way, for myself, I could say, honestly, it is, because, you know, our goal is to try to get everything. And for myself, you know, if I'm the one who has to go ask, I'll go ask, because, you know, what's the worst that can happen? We're still in the same spot, you know? So that's my little input on it, but I know I talk too much, so I'm going to mute myself.
No, you're fine. I did notice though, like in the Bay Area up here in Northern California, there's a big PI community, but it's like, it takes like 2 or 3 degrees to get to that person's history, right? And then when I was in San Diego, or I talked to my mom, I think the community is a big PI community, the same, but I feel like it's like 1 degree. You know, like if I mention a name to my mom, she's like, what's the last name? Oh, yeah. I know so-and-so. And I feel like all the time I ask somebody from San Diego, oh, do you know so-and-so? Like right away. Oh, yeah, that's so-and-so. So I think that either you guys get together all the time or more often, or the community is more connected. And I'm thinking it's more connected because my mom lives in Chula Vista and she knows everybody. And I just mentioned a first name, you know, I mentioned everybody's name. She's like, oh yeah, that guy, Kenny, he's a doctor, you know? And she's like, of course, Teini. And then she knows Tana, and she's like, she knows so far, every PI that's been from down San Diego, she knows. So I was thinking everybody kind of like 1 degree knows everyone there. And that's how we're getting the word spread out there, and we're taking each other to get vaccinated. Do you feel that, or am I off? Or go ahead, Tana.
Okay, I was dying. Oh no, I see Keni unmuted. Go ahead, Keni.
No, I was just gonna say I totally agree with the PI community here being really tight knit, and one of the unique things that we have as well, that both Teini and Tana have been a part of in the past, is the PIFA festival. That's a huge gathering of, you know, our communities here in San Diego, and in order to throw a festival like that, it requires a strong network, strong leadership, and so I'm not surprised that, you know, we see these numbers here in San Diego.
Yeah, I believe that too, because PIFA is huge. Everybody knows, I believe, in my opinion, everyone knows in September, you know, in the 3rd week, you head down to San Diego. And that's amazing that it's gotten out and further, and people always travel down there. So I think it is, everybody knows everyone. Teini, I know that you started San Diego there, and did you find it easy to find the PI community when you got to San Diego?
Not really, because not at first, because UCSD is up in northern San Diego, and there's not very many Pacific Islanders up here at UCSD. My parents hung around a lot of SDSU people, so I assumed that when I came to San Diego, I would find this huge PI community, and that just wasn't the case. But I co-founded the Pacific Islander Student Association at UCSD, and that's really where we like found this small but mighty community at UCSD, and got connected with med students and Tana, and really like infiltrated the community, and it's still going now. And I feel like that was just honestly so amazing, because that's how I got connected with the community and really found friends, to be honest. And then similar to what Keni said, I feel like that's why we're so close knit, right? Like once you find one person, it's just like word travels fast. And then I ended up doing a pageant for PIFA, and did the whole PIFA festival and everything like that. And PIFA's been, I know when, it's crazy, I was thinking about this, it's almost been a year, but a year ago when we got put on lockdown, the shelves were empty. Like how scary that was for everyone. And people worked really hard to get all these food resources, like bags of pounds of flour and sugar, and for our elders and our community leaders and our Faisayaos, and delivered them to their houses, delivered plates to their houses. And I don't know if it's the same in LA or the Bay Area, so I can only speak to how like the experience here in San Diego. But I assume that when you serve your community like that, and you are coming to the door with masks and food, and then you say you should get vaccinated, you kind of have that relationship and that rapport where you can trust that the person, you know, has your best interest, so you should probably go get vaccinated. So that's just been my experience here in San Diego in the NHPI community. But Again, it is like, I know LA is so widespread, and, you know, from Carson all the way up to the San Fernando Valley, it's hard to have that much of a connection versus here in San Diego. The mileage is different.
I have to jump in here and say that in our family, Nackies in my family, everybody has an Auntie Evelingi imitation. You got one if you're in the family. But when Nackie does it, she sounds exactly like her mom. So if anytime there's an Auntie Evelingi impression in there, I just gotta laugh, especially when Nackie's doing it. But to your point, to the whole community's point, PIFA, that's something that we, Nackie and I, have been like, this last year, 2020, we had put that on the calendar and it didn't matter except for COVID. So when COVID came, we actually didn't go. But it's known as, you know, that is the big event to get to, the big cultural event to get to. And I think that, you know, that speaks to how close knit the community is there, how close knit the people are there. So, you know, maybe it's not, you know, maybe you all expected these kind of good results with the vaccination. But I suspect that it's not just, you know, it's not just geography. I would suspect that all the people that are on that acknowledgements page and people like yourselves in the communities are putting in really hard work. So I don't think there's necessarily a secret sauce to it. I think it's the people that are doing it. And that speaks to all of you, all the people on that acknowledgements page. It's just hard work. I mean, that's when we get down to it. It's inspiring to see a community winning. We've had so much bad news as a Pacific Islander community. Once the data began to be disaggregated, we were like, you know, holy cow, there's a huge problem here, and we've really been on the defense since then. So to hear good news that's coming out of San Diego, you know, that helps everybody in terms of morale and inspiration, and, you know, it can be done because it is being done. So yeah, I just felt like I needed to jump in there and say that, you know, we're proud of your entire community, Pacific Islander community is proud of the work that you're doing. Yeah, we're trying to figure out what's the secret sauce, what's the marinade. Yeah, we're trying to do that, but, you know, I think in our hearts we know that it comes down to hard work and the work that you all are putting in. Sorry, Nackie, I just had to jump in because, you know, you're doing my auntie's impression, so I had to put my words in on that.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, my mom she's crazy, but besides that, Sheila is asking a totally different question. I'm frequently asked for resources for translation to Pacific Islander languages. Can I refer folks to PICOPSI, Pacific Islander COVID-19 response team, San Diego's response team? Any other resources? I think there's, off the top of my head, I can't think of any right now other than, you know, you guys, you can reach out to these guys and they can get you the information. Also, PICOPSI has great information resources. The Pacific Islander National COVID Response Team, I mean, all San Diego, you know, Oregon, everyone can get you that information. And it's actually just instant. We just have to go to an email, hey, who's got this? And we can send it to you. It really is that easy. I'm sure I have it somewhere in a file, so.
Yeah, we can get that information. I think the task force has that, because I remember it was in language, in certain languages, right. It was available. So we can find out how to get that out and where the website is. I'm pretty sure it's housed either on a Facebook page or one of the website pages.
Yeah.
Carla and Nackie, make a comment too?
Sure.
So, you know, not to throw a Debbie Downer thing into our wonderful success here, but I also want to be real in that, you know, like Carl said, you have to put in the work, and trust me, we've had our stumbles. We've had our lickings from, you know, elders and community members, but I think in hindsight, I think they appreciate the efforts that we're doing. The other thing too is just, you know, kind of like the black sheep in the room, is that honestly, you know, we also have to navigate community dynamics. Mm-hmm. And the reality is, you know, I think what's helped us to continue navigating is that we don't get caught up in it, or, you know, we have to acknowledge it, but we continue the course, you know, make this a canoe thing. We stay the course, and we don't get, you know, caught up in it, because, you know, we don't have to like each other, but I think to do the work for our communities,
Right.
I can agree to that. So I just wanted to acknowledge that yeah, we're loving the rainbow right now, but we've gone through some gray clouds, and that'll always be there, but we're gonna milk up the nice sunny San Diego weather here.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I mean, it is important to highlight San Diego for the great job that you guys are doing, and also to highlight you all and everyone that you listed. And I think it's going to motivate people to share even more. You know, it touched somebody, so they're going to reach out to an elderly aunt, or, you know, or educate someone. Like my mom got the vaccine, the first vaccine, and she's like, I got the vaccine, I'm going to fly up and see you. I was like, no, lady, no, it don't work like that. And so, you know, us talking to people, like her saying that to me, and I'm like, no, you have to get the second vaccine, and you've still got to wear your mask. And I think a lot of one-on-one that we do with people, it sinks in, and then they pass it on. And then, so I think you guys are motivating other counties and our community to talk more, because the numbers are still high in the in the US. We're still high, you know, we still have high numbers, but it's important for us to highlight San Diego, because it can be done. We can do it. We can do it. So thank you so much for your time. The hour has gone by so quickly. We appreciate you. We appreciate the work that you guys are doing. Congratulations to all the hard work that's paying off. And we look forward to hearing more from you guys. Thank you, Keni. Thank you, Teini. Thank you, Tana, for all your work. Anything else? Any shout outs? Anything you guys want to get out there besides Tana's daughter in the back? Hi, baby.
I'm actually going to drag in my family, so I want to give a shout out to my family, because I can't do a lot
part of the work too
without them giving me the blessing, or some reason to add to the honey-do list when I get home.
Yes. Tavai said hi, Lay. Wonderful work. Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in. Catch us every Monday, Koviki Talk at 5 p.m. right here on Facebook, and we will see you next week. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Great job.